I think exercise selection is important, but I think what's more important is training hard enough. Does it hurt? If that's a no, probably pretty good for you. You get a big stretch in that muscle. If you are, probably good for you. Are you targeting that muscle and that muscle alone? If that is the goal, absolutely that's for you.
You can eat the best quality food on the planet, but if you're in a calorie surplus, you're not going to lose weight.
Yeah, a really good quote I always like is, don't let the weight control you. You're in control of the weight. So the minute you feel like you're getting pulled apart by whatever weight you're lifting, generally means you're not performing it properly. Yeah.
This podcast is getting naughty. I can tell it was going to go this way. Before we dive into this episode, I want to ask you to hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. It helps keep growing the channel and keep getting fantastic guests like this one. Gents, welcome to the show. And this time round, we've got Alex's debut. David, you're back again, and we're talking about how to get jacked and lean for summer 2025. We ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Happy to be here, Colin.
Good stuff. Well, first things first, I want to go into like 4 different areas because there's obviously multiple factors that play when it comes to being successfully able to achieve the result that we want in terms of how we look in the mirror. And the first of those that I think a lot of people will be interested about is training. What do we need to consider, guys, when it comes to how we're training for getting jacked and lean?
Lots of different things, to be fair. I think one of the first things that you've got here is structure, as in how many days do you need? I think that's usually people's first question, like how many days do I need to actually be at the gym? And that depends. It depends what you're currently doing, usually. I know when a lot of people come to work with us, one of the questions we ask is like, how many days have you been training? How many days do you want to train? So many people are like, training 2 days, would love to train 6. It's like, it's probably not the best idea. So usually look at what you're currently doing. Somewhere between 3 and 5 is usually the sort of sweet spot. 4 obviously is the sweet spot for 80-90% of our clients. Yeah. So yeah, 4 days training's usually what we'd recommend. That allows you to hit most muscle groups twice per week, which should be one of your goals.
Let's talk about that. Why is that important?
Generally based on how quickly muscles can recover. Now, if you look at the sort of old school training approach, which was very much chest on a Monday, legs on a Tuesday, shoulders on a Wednesday. That can work for a lot of people, but when you actually look at like optimizing results and recovery and building muscle, you do want to be trying to hit each muscle group at least twice per week. So training 4 days per week typically allows you to do that, depending on which training split that you're following.
Alex, one thing I think you've gone deep on in the last year, and you've become a real subject matter expert in, is the exercises that we do in the days that we train, or even the split that we've got across those 4 days, 5 days, however much we're training. What have you found in that space?
There may be a lot of answers in this podcast like this, but it depends. And I'd love to not answer questions like that, but it's so true most of the time. There's a few key things to kind of look for when you're selecting exercises. Does it hurt? If that's a no, probably pretty good for you. You get a big stretch in that muscle. If you are, probably good for you. Are you targeting that muscle and that muscle alone? If that is the goal, absolutely that's for you. Big exercises at the start of someone's journey are always what I would go for, because you're going to tackle a lot of muscle groups at the same time. And you're going to get more bang for your buck for that. As you're getting a little bit more
stimulus almost.
Yeah, as you're kind of getting a little bit more advanced, you can start to look at the kind of fancy stuff, I suppose. But yeah, I always hate saying the answer, it depends. But if you feel it, if it's not causing you pain, if you're getting a good stretch and the target muscle is working, it's a good exercise for you.
This was something that David and I used to always kind of go back and forth on about. Do you need to squat? Do you need to bench? Do you need to deadlift? And back in the day, you were a bit of an evangelist for all three, David. But I think knowledge now has kind of evolved to some of the criteria that Alex is talking about in terms of feeling the muscle. Because I know that whenever I barbell back squatted, I never really felt, like my legs were sore, but it didn't feel like my muscles. It felt like my hips the full time. And that was always a barrier for me actually wanting to train them. And when you're a young guy, the last thing you need is an excuse to not train legs.
Yeah. I think enjoyment's such a big thing. I've always been quite a big advocate of saying, you want to arrive somewhere between optimal and enjoyable. If you can get a real good mix of the two of them, you're probably on a pretty good track. And someone who's a bodybuilder, they're always going to go completely optimal because they've got the passion for it, they've got the drive for it, they've got the motivation for it. You want to have a little bit of enjoyability in there because you're going to keep going at it for longer. And longevity is really the key to getting a good physique in the long term. Yeah, I think when you look at getting jacked and lean, which is obviously the sort of premise of this podcast, that is a case of, low body fat percentage and high muscle mass. When you're looking at building enough muscle, the way to do that is largely through, exercise selection to an extent, but it does come down more to execution on that exercise. Like, I actually don't think exercise selection is as important as a lot of people make out. I think things like intensity is more important. Like intensity across even suboptimal exercises is probably going to give you a better result than lack of intensity across the best exercises. And I always look at, there's people in the gym that honestly, they look mental when they train. They're doing weird exercises, they're doing them with really bad form, but they're doing it with a lot of intensity, and their body changes because of that. And equally, there's the sort of science guys with the notepads and that work off percentages that don't ever look any different. But they're doing the best exercises based on science. They're following the best protocols based on percentage-based lifting and this, that, and the next thing. But they're not actually training that hard. So I think exercise selection is important, but I think what's more important is training hard enough.
Talk to me about intensity. How are we going to measure that?
Generally, RIR. So if you've got a certain amount of reps in reserve at the end of a set. So if I've got a client in that's either new to my training program or new to training, I'll say first couple of weeks, let's work to like an RIR of like 2 or 3. And that just means that when they get to the end of a set, they've got, if someone held a gun to my head, I could probably do 2 or 3 more. That's where we want to work at. As you're getting a little bit more advanced, as you're getting a little bit more, you're feeling like you're better in the gym, you can work to failure. AKA, if someone told me to do one more, I physically could not move this weight. You can build muscle between an RIR of 1 to 3. So as long as you're within that range, you're good. I would say that if you're leaving 3 reps at the end of every set, you're going to have to do more sets. And if you're not leaving any reps at the end of a set, do less sets. But they're going to come out the same equal volume, and therefore you're going to build muscle.
This is something that I see across a lot of your client results, Alex, when you talk about we improve the intensity of the time they spend in the gym.
Yeah.
And we started to realise that, that bench where you've been banging out sets of 12 with 60 kilos, well, let's put that up to 70 kilos. And guess what? You're now doing a set of 12 that's really hard, and there's maybe one left in the tank. And guess what? Your chest is probably going to look more like you've trained than when you were kind of going through the motions with the weight that you've used every time you've gone to the gym for the last 9 months. Changing that, as David said, sometimes means you could be doing a suboptimal exercise, but massively stimulating the muscle way more for optimal look.
Yeah, I think if your goal is to get in shape this year, you probably will at some point ask yourself or ask your coach or ask somebody in the industry the question of like, how heavy should I be lifting? Like, it's the most common question that we get asked. And that comes down to intensity. You should be lifting as heavy as possible whilst being able to hit the reps that you're trying to get. So we tend to work in rep ranges with most of our clients. So rather than saying, go and hit 4 sets of 10 today, Colin, it would be more of a case of go and hit 4 sets of between 8 and 12. And we give you that sort of rep target. So to say that you can find a weight that you can push and that you can lift within that rep range. And usually also because if you're training with enough intensity, your first 2 sets, you might actually get more reps there than you do your latter 2 sets just based on the fact that you're fatigued. And if you're getting a fresh set, 4 sets of 12, that is a clear indication that you should lift a little bit more.
The weight should be up.
And that's an easy way to just decide. And if you're new to training or you're newer to training, don't be afraid of just going in and just deciding, pick a weight that you think you'll be able to get your 4 sets of 12. And then next week, go, right, well, 22.5 kilo was, I managed my 12s. So I'm going to go 25. And maybe this week you get 12 and then you get 12. But then maybe you get 10 and then you get 8. That's a good sign that you've picked a weight that's sort of appropriate. Maybe week 3 you go in and it's 12, 12, 12 and 10. Cool, you've made some progress there. So that's a good way to sort of gauge things.
Yeah, it's a great way. Alex, when we're talking about reps in reserve and failure, what might that look or feel like? And I know it's hard to maybe describe that because I've seen the videos on your Instagram where it's really easy to see, but talk me through from like an audio perspective what that might be like.
Just make the noises.
I was in the gym the other day and I had my earphones blasting and I was like, I'm going to do a really hard set of hack squats here. And David came up to me afterwards. He was like, I was loud, mate. And I was like, I know, I think I'm going to post that on my music. But yeah, you basically want to get to a stage where you go to move the weight in the concentric phase, aka the pressing or the pushing or the tough phase, and it doesn't move anymore. That's where you want to get to. Now, for beginners, that actually never happens because the form will break down first. So that's why I'm saying when I give a beginner a program, I'm not going to ask them to do that. I'd rather they just got the extra volume on that movement on an extra set instead.
Yeah.
So you can work to 3 RIR over 4 sets of 12 if you're a beginner. And if you're someone a little bit more advanced, I was going to say like myself there, but I never like to say I'm advanced lifter. I could do 2 sets and do 2 sets to failure. The volume's the same, but I'm able to carry out that exercise better.
with good form until you find it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's a great distinction there, because you see people reach failure and then do maybe cheat reps, or their form goes completely, and it's a harder way to measure things over the longer term.
Yeah, I think speed of the movement's a good way to look at things. Like if you don't know if you're close to failure or not, is your first rep easier and quicker than your last rep? Like you should, if your last rep looks the exact same, you're maybe not close to failure. So things should start to slow down. I know certainly when I'm closer to failure on a bench press, let's say the first 5 reps take a second to get off my chest and the last 3 reps take 3 seconds. That's going to be a little bit more accurate of, you know, a better representation of you training closer to kind of where you need to be to build muscle.
We've talked about the structure of days, splits. We want to be hitting the body parts twice a week. How many sets or how much kind of volume do we think we can handle?
Again, it depends.
It does depend.
Beginner, intermediate, advanced, it'll depend. It depends how many training days that you're doing as well. Actual science on this, maybe should have came prepared. I'm going to hazard a guess between 7 and 10 sets per muscle group per session.
As a general rule for me, I would always go more advanced lifter, less sets, more intense. As a bit more beginner lifter, do more sets, less intense. You're basically giving the beginner more chance to get some good reps.
Yeah.
You're increasing their
surface area of work.
Exactly. That's
100% a great point, Alex.
100% it. 100% it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if I look at how I train now, I actually prefer to go like all the way to like not being able to do any more in like a leg extension, for example, and do that twice.
Yeah.
And I can focus and concentrate for that amount of time than to sit there and do 3 12s and maybe eke out one more next week, or maybe I'd put like the pin in the thing to get an extra 2.5 kilos or whatever.
Yeah.
That works better for how my lifestyle's designed, but also how my personality is too. And I know I've stimulated the muscle then.
Yeah, it takes time to learn how to train with intensity. So you almost need to deserve, or you need to earn the right to do less sets to an extent. I think beginners should be targeting sort of 3 to 5 sets for a lot of their movements. And I think as you get a little bit more advanced, somewhere between 1 and 3 is generally pretty good for most people, and providing that you're training with that at a decent level of intensity.
Yeah, someone who's very advanced, you'll find that their first 2 sets out of 4 kind of almost get rendered as warm-up sets because they weren't hard. So you'd be much better doing a warm-up scheme of 6 reps or something lighter, 4 reps a little bit heavier, and then jumping into that first one. That first working set's now very, very intense, and it's actually it's better.
I think if we look at, you and I trained loads, Alex, before we went to Ibiza in the summer there. We were doing back pretty much every Wednesday. We were doing like 2 sets in each movement, just absolute sheer intensity, and it felt great. But then I would think like, oh, back in the day, I probably did like 6 or 7 movements, 4 sets each.
Yeah, just for back. Yeah.
Just for back.
Yeah.
And my back looks just as good now, if not better. And I knew those sessions were of a good quality. So it is a little bit of give and take and a little bit of learning. But I think the intensity piece and the selection of the exercise to make sure that you're hitting the muscle in the way that you want it is so key.
Yeah, that starts to bleed in something called junk volume. So you can actually, you can do too much. You can do too much.
I was going to ask about mistakes.
Doing 12 sets of chest, I can guarantee 6 of those sets aren't great. And if you're going to be doing lots more sets, structure your workout in a way that okay, these first 2 or 3 exercises for my chest, they're the ones I really want to focus on. That's my big movements. And then as you kind of go through the workout, picking something that's a little bit, more stimulus but less fatiguing on the body, aka like a pec fly or something like that. That's when you would slot that in.
Absolutely. In training, we've got to talk about form.
Yeah.
And like how that works. And again, I watch you two train. I think people watch my videos, they probably see I try and execute things the best possible way. What advice would you have for people when it comes to form?
Go with someone that knows what they're doing. Like, you can learn how to lift weights by yourself. But I always say to people, like, lifting weights is a skill like playing guitar to an extent. Like, you can definitely learn how to play guitar yourself. It's just way easier to do it with someone that's already done it and made the mistakes. So I think you should, I'm not saying you need to hire a personal trainer. This is not a sales pitch, but you should train with someone that knows what they're doing. Like, my introduction at the gym was training with a coach for martial arts at the time, but it was somebody that is a few years ahead of me that could actually teach me how to move safely, effectively, with decent form. So yeah, I think my advice is like, go with someone that knows what they're doing, whether that's your mate once a week right now until you've kind of grasped it, or whether you've got the budget to afford a coach, like, do that. But certainly go with someone that knows what they're doing. And if this is what confuses me, because I'm quite a visual person, but like, I would generally, like, if I didn't know a movement, I'd watch a YouTube video on it, and I feel like I'd get the grips of it.
That was me. I watched hours of Chris Jones and Christian Guzman and
I completely forgot about Chris Jones. You've just jogged my memory there. That's so
Physiques
funny.
of greatness. Yeah.
It
was amazing, the form videos.
Aye.
But some people can't, like, they need to be shown things. So there's a lot of people that would watch all these videos.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah. So I think like that's one way to learn, but it's maybe not the way for everyone.
What else would we cover in terms of form? What might be helpful in terms of like tempo or what they should be trying to achieve?
Absolutely. I think, a really good quote I always like is, don't let the weight control you. You're in control of the weight. So the minute you feel like you're getting pulled apart by whatever weight you're lifting, generally means you're not performing it properly.
Yeah.
You want to be under control of that weight the entire time. You'll feel the muscles working way better. I've had times where I'm coming towards the top end of a movement. I'm thinking, yeah, it feels really heavy and I'm done in here, but I don't know if the muscles are working that well here.
Yeah.
I just feel a bit fucked after this.
Yeah.
And I think when you really kind of strip a little bit of weight off there and you go, right, I'm going to take this really, really slow on the way down, little pause at the bottom, and then nice big push back up again. You do a good few reps of that, you're going to tire quicker, but the stimulus in your legs or arms, whatever you're working, is way better. Way better. And a much lower risk of injury as well.
That's another really good point. And I think a lot of people listening to podcasts like this one are people who are time poor, that want to try and achieve the most in the time that they spend. One of the ways to do that is sometimes lifting less weight, but with absolutely great form and technique, while it's still being intense enough to generate a change. And if that means slowing down the eccentric, like I know some of the times I've loaded up leg presses and blasted out 10 reps, I could probably taken 2 plates off per side, controlled the eccentric more, and maybe not fucked myself up as much in terms of my CNS, but my legs would have taken a beating. Pretty good win there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably, maybe not a lot of people, but some people certainly don't know what good form looks or feels like. Form is essentially like taking the muscle through a full range of movement. So if you're not actually moving your muscle through its full range, that generally, not always, generally might mean that you're not lifting with good form. So half reps, you'll hear that all the time. People maybe only going halfway down when they're squatting, or maybe not touching their chest when they're bench pressing, whatever else. The goal when you're lifting anyway, it should be to take the muscle through like a full range of movement.
The eccentric part of a movement is something that Alex has been drumming into me every time we bumped into each other, David Lloyd, recently. Yeah. What is happening in the eccentric, Alex?
That's where your muscle's getting broken down the most. So I think there was so much emphasis for years on the squeeze. Like we always thought, you're doing a bicep curl, make sure you squeeze at the top, Over the years, everything's pointing to actually the most important part of that movement is the bottom. When it's in a full stretch,
the lowering phase,
to the point where if you're a relatively advanced lifter, doing extra reps at the end, just from the lengthened phase to halfway up, is still beneficial to you, from a muscle building standpoint anyway.
Well, and that's what we want to achieve here. We want to be jacked and lean from that perspective as well. The only other thing I want to say on training before we move on, if you're trying to get lean and you've got some muscle, you need to maintain the quality of your training when you're dieting and not necessarily change as a mistake to doing lots of fluffy high rep stuff when previously we were doing stuff before. Because I think that's a mistake people make. Like, oh, I'm cutting, I'm going to do high reps, low weight.
Yeah, you're training for weight loss or weight gain, whether it's to build muscle or lose fat, should largely look the same. The only difference is going to be when you're dieting, you're likely going to get weaker at some point because you're putting less fuel in the body. And when you're not dieting and you're on higher calories, you're gonna lift a little bit more. So yeah, your training shouldn't change. The only change to your training might be actually adding some form of maybe cardio if you're looking to get a little bit leaner. Not that it's essential, but it could be something to consider.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to nutrition. From a structure perspective, what do we need to consider about the food goes in our mouth?
There is quite a few things to consider. Like, I think the most commonly asked questions are going to be like, do I need to track my calories? Do I need to track my macros? Are food choices even important? That's probably the main 3 things that we get asked as coaches. But from a structure perspective, whether your goal's to build muscle or to lose weight, you likely want to be aware of your calorie intake, which makes things much, much easier. You can gain muscle and lose fat without knowing your calorie intake. It's just a little bit harder. You're sort of taking a stab in the dark. So I would say if you've got a goal to get jacked and lean this year, you're looking to get in the shape of your life, like you do need to be, or at least have some more awareness around your calorie and protein goal. Now, we as coaches don't necessarily focus massively on tracking carb and fat goals. Reason being, just tracking calories and protein just gives you a lot more flexibility, it gives you a lot more freedom, allows you to enjoy things a lot more. But the way I say it, I tracked my carbs, fats, protein, calories for like 3 years solid. And then I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to track my calories and protein. And my results were largely the same. And I enjoyed life more whilst just tracking my calorie and protein goal.
Yeah. I largely go off of tracking your calories and protein only will get you the result. I think tracking all the macros, if you want to delve into that, will possibly change how you feel when you're training. That's the only difference there. So the result will be the same. How you feel when you get there could differ. So if you find out that someone's, just tracking their calories and protein and they're getting all of their fats from, trans fats and not the ones that we actually want to focus on, like the kind of unsaturated fats, they could feel worse. They're still hitting their calorie and protein goal, but they're the things that might affect, aka your sessions, sleep, all that kind of stuff might get affected.
Work.
Yeah. So I do a lot of the time kind of come from a position of why not just chuck the kitchen sink at it if someone can handle it. Got a lot of clients that have got the best results they've ever got. I do generally put them on a macro split, and that's where me and you slightly differ. Yeah. But only the people that I think can handle it. Because ultimately, if I give someone a macro split and that just stresses them out, and they're like, "Oh, I can't hit this. I wanted to go out for dinner with my pal this weekend, and I could hit my protein, but I can't hit my carbs and fat." I'm like, "That's cool." But on the most part, try and hit your macros. If you can't, get your protein sorted, and then think of your fats and carbs as an afterthought.
Yeah,
I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm seeing more popularity around is not tracking your calories and just eating clean, and it's kind of come back full circle
and put it on a breadboard.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly, and like sprinkle the salt like Salt Bay onto it. It's a bit extra, isn't it? Now, I'm massively in favor of the quality of your food choice being great for exactly some of the things that Alex talked about there: performance in work, sleep, how you feel, your gut. But cold hard facts: you can eat the best quality food on the planet, but if you're in a calorie surplus, you're not going to lose weight.
Yeah.
And people online are arguing to blue in the face, no, it's because the gut microbiome is compromised, or no, it's because of seed oils. Calm down. You're not in a deficit. You cannot lose weight because of that.
That's it. That's 100% it.
100%. And I think when looking at dieting, like, you need to look at where you're coming from and what your experience is, because if you've never tracked your calories before, giving someone, a macro split is going to be exceptionally hard. So it's sort of like, where are you at in your journey? If you've never tracked your food before, just track your calories. Don't even aim for a protein goal. Just track your calories. If you've been doing that a while and you're like, right, I'm not seeing the results that I want, then maybe add in tracking things like protein. Then it's a case of like, okay, right, let's now look at your food choices. So you're hitting your calories, you're hitting your protein, but like, what are you hitting them with? Let's have a little bit more awareness surrounding that. Maybe you were eating sort of 50% good, 50% shit. Let's sort of change that, 80% good, 20% shit. And then it's maybe a case of, right, okay, you're getting some good progress here. Maybe you want to optimize training performance. Maybe you want to optimize recovery, sleep, stress. That's when I'd probably dive into, like any athletes, 100%. You should track all those things, or anyone that's super serious about this. But it depends where you're at in your journey.
Of course it does. Let's talk about meal timing then. So when I eat what I eat, if I know that I'm going to be tracking it to be having me in a deficit, I'm going to hit my protein target, which again, we maybe mentioned maybe a gram per pound of body weight is roughly the guidance. What about when I'm eating?
How many meals you eat a day for purely from a weight loss perspective doesn't matter. Absolutely doesn't matter. From a muscle building perspective, your muscles quite like to have calories going in throughout the day, and you will feel the effects of that as well from an energy standpoint. That's the kind of be all and end all there. If you just want to drop body fat and you want to lose weight, you eat all your calories at night, whatever. Just have a little think about what effect that has on you. AKA, if you've got 2,500 calories to eat for that day and you're eating 2,000 of them when you go home at night, that's going to cause you some problems. And it definitely causes me problems, because when I have to do it, I don't sleep as well, and I don't get to sleep as easily as well. And that's going to have a knock-on effect into the next day, etc., etc.
Yeah, I would say try things out. Like, meal timing is going to be different for everyone. Some people feel different cognitively on different meal timings. They feel better in the gym in different meal timings. Look at your calories, divide it by 3, and try and have 3 meals. See how you feel, see how you perform, see how you sleep. Do that for a week, and then go, do you know what? I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to eat 5 times. I'm going to have 3, moderately sized meals now, and I'm going to have 2 sort of more snack-based foods. Try that. I'll go through different phases. Like, if I want to be super dialed in from a cognitive standpoint and I'm trying to use my brain a little bit more, I'll eat less. Like, I feel better on less calories, and I feel better with longer periods without food.
You can feel sluggish.
Yeah.
And you recognise that. Some people aren't, but you recognise that.
100%. When I fast in the mornings and just drink coffee, like, I feel great. from a brain performance standpoint. But if you ask me to go and try and PB a squat, deadlift, bench, leg press, whatever else, I'm not going to feel great. So look at what your main goal is. This podcast about getting jacked and lean, if that's your main goal, you are probably looking to eat between 4 and 6 times per day, because you're wanting to optimize things like muscle protein synthesis, which is just giving your body a consistent feed of protein. You probably want to optimize energy for training, which is just a consistent dose of calories. You probably want to optimize sleep, which is going to be getting a decent amount of carbs before you go to bed. So look at those things. But your meal timing will depend on your lifestyle and stuff like that as well.
Depending on how many calories you're on per day as well. Like if when I was attempting bodybuilding, and I was upwards of 4,000 calories a day, if I tried to eat that in 3 meals, like good luck being productive after like about an hour after that doing anything. That's where I struggled.
You're so saturated.
100%. Your training's incredible when you're training, but that's pretty much the only time I actually felt good.
Yeah.
Only time I felt good. So if your goal is to be productive as well, if you're a young professional, you're gonna have to just make sure that make sure that you're feeling good throughout the day, and not just like 3 hours after you eat.
For sure.
Totally agree. From personal experience, I typically eat between 3 and 4 meals, whether I'm dieting or not. On weekends, occasionally I'll go 2 meals because I'll fast in the morning
Eat more
if
later.
I'm playing golf, and I'll eat more later socially, and I'm still able to stay within a calorie allowance. But it just changes, and your hunger signals will adapt with that.
Yeah.
So like many of our friends that we know will fast. They will just simply not be hungry until like 1 p.m.
Yeah.
It's because they've done it for a long time. But if you suddenly said to me, I'm going to do this fat loss diet and I'm not going to eat till 1 p.m., the first couple of weeks when you're not eating till 1 p.m., you're going to be way more hungry. Like your body's just going to be habituated into what you normally eat at what time.
Eating at similar times for most people, alongside sleeping at similar times, allows them to really realise.
Underrated hack.
It's a complete hack. Like it lets them know, when do I normally feel good throughout the day and when do I normally feel bad. Yeah. If I go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time, if I train at a similar time, if I eat at the same times, I know myself, like between like 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. in the day, that's when I'm not getting a whole lot done, because I just feel a little bit sluggish. But I know that now, and it's going to be
the same. We have an app together, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, I love that. That's when I feel my quote unquote worst for the day, and it's when I will have. Actually, I don't nap with David. I nap myself, but I'll have like a wee nap, and I'm just like, I'll just take that time, and I'm like, that's cool. But then I know I get that little burst of energy again before the gym at night time. I do train at night most of the time, and you feel good again.
Yeah.
You can almost forecast that.
Well, because you know your body and you know how your schedule looks as well. Food choices is something that I had down as well. We've sort of spoken about the quality of that, but are there any recommendations that you think that people should always really consider when it comes to things that they should definitely include within their diet?
I mean, preference is going to be a large thing that you need to look at. Like you probably shouldn't be eating a ton of food that you don't enjoy eating. In saying that, there are some foods that I eat that I don't love, and I eat them for the health benefits. There are some things like that.
What stands out?
Really dark chocolate. It tastes like dog shit.
It's better, yeah.
But it's really good for you. Yeah. Salmon, don't love salmon, but it's a great way to get healthy fats. So food choices, like we will always suggest 80% coming from clean whole foods, 20% coming from things that you enjoy a little bit more. Providing that you're sticking to that, you're going to be doing pretty well. If you want to make that 90% good, 10% a little bit off, you're going to be doing even better. And if you're someone that just enjoys eating super clean whole foods, then go 100% all the time. Like, you're going to feel better, you're going to perform better. You might just not have the flexibility with your lifestyle that somebody else will.
From a satiety perspective, and that's just a fancy word for feeling full, I know that when I'm pushing hardest to get as lean as I can and really push the boat out, eating as nutrient dense, single ingredient foods as possible helps me, to the extent that if I fit in like a Squares bar or some cereal when I'm on low calories, I honestly could eat it for like back to back and not even have noticed that I've just done 400 calories of Squares bars, or 500 calories of Squares bars, or 600 calories of Squares bars, because if you've not been used to those foods, you become even more. And I'm kind of somebody that would rather not just have one, because I feel like I want another off the back of it, unless I quickly switch mode. And this is like a funny thing, like brush your teeth or go out for a walk or something like that, escape the food environment.
You've always been a fan of doing that, haven't you? I just brush my teeth at night and then I can't eat anything else.
Yeah, that's the rules.
2 p.m.
I'm done.
Well, I never run out of calories at 2 p.m. thankfully.
Keep track of how you feel eating certain foods. It's as simple as that. Like, there's probably a time when you were eating a certain thing and you felt your best. Think of what you were doing back then and repeat it. It's likely not going to have changed by that point. Also looking at, if you're to look at like the science behind different macros, like protein digests pretty slow, fat slows down digestion, carbs, even just think about being out for dinner. Like you could just sit and eat the bread all day long. You just don't really get full. You could sit and eat the chips all day long. You don't really get full. Fillet steak's amazing, but there'll come a point where you're like, I've had enough fillet steak. You just get fuller quicker. You could just eat carbs all night long.
We can have an eating challenge after this. So you can eat the most fillet steak.
That's fine. Fine by me.
You're paying.
Oh, really? That's not good. How and when should we adjust our nutrition as we go through a diet when we're aiming to get lean?
Yeah, I mean, if your goal's getting lean, you need to be doing two things like we covered already. One of them is going to be tracking your calories. That's going to give you how much you are consuming, of course. The other thing's monitoring your body weight on a daily basis. Like I am big on weighing yourself regularly. So weigh yourself on a daily basis, look at the average weight across a sort of 7 to 10 day period, and then decide if anything needs adjusted off the back of that. My generalized rule of thumb is if your goal's fat loss, you should be losing between 0.5% and 1.5% of your body weight. So I don't weigh that, but I'm going to go, I weigh 80 kilo, easy number to figure out here. I'd be looking to lose somewhere between 0.4 and 1.2 kilo every week. Like that would be my goal for like safe, healthy, effective fat loss. If I'm tracking my calories, I'm tracking my steps, I'm tracking my body weight, and I'm not within that sort of range, that's when I'd make a small change. What that small change is, it does depend. My, again, general rule of thumb, drop calories by 10%, increase movement by about 10%. Try that for another week. See if things move in the right direction. If they don't, make another change.
And there's the choice there to, if you don't want to cut more food, increase activity more, or if you don't have time to add more steps or to do more sessions, then you have to drop food faster as well.
It's always a question of time for any of my clients. You know, if you have the time and you want to eat more, do the steps. If you don't have the time, you're going to have to eat a little bit less. And chances are as well, you have less time is because you're working more. So you're going to have less time for steps anyway. So just eat a little bit less. You're sitting at your desk, probably not burning as much as someone who's got more time and doing more steps.
That's the big thing. I mean, I've said before in a podcast that for the 12-week peak in 2022, I was doing between 18 and 20,000 steps a day at the end. And it was like a part-time job. But I was having to double up and do a thing called bundling, where I was like listening to podcasts for researching guests, or I was taking Teams calls while out walking. I just had to get it done because I didn't want to war food anymore. If I didn't want to do that number of steps, I would have had to take away maybe 250 calories, something like that.
Yeah, you've got three options generally if you're not losing fat. You can reduce your calories, you can walk more / move more in general, or you can add cardio. Like that's essentially the same thing. You're just burning more calories. But that's the three levers that we pull. Like if our clients are struggling or they're hitting a plateau with fat loss, it's a case of, okay, can you eat less calories? Like, are you really hungry right now? Do you think you could give up, 100, 200, 300 calories? If the answer is yes, start there. If they're like, no, I'm already struggling with that, then it would be like, well, do you have time to do another 1,000 steps a day? Or, make up more at the weekend? And they're like, yeah, I could do that. Okay, do that instead. And for some people, they're like, I don't have the time. I can't go out, I walk. And it's like, okay, well, let's sort of save some of that time. And could you do 20 minutes of higher intense cardio to sort of get the same calorie burn maybe as an hour's walk, but you're doing it in 20 minutes instead? So that's the three levers that we'll pull on the most part.
I want to ask Alex a really frequently asked question. When it comes to nutrition, should I bulk or cut first?
Depends.
What does it depend on?
What do you look like? Like what do you look like, and how far away is the goal? Like if you're saying to me, I've got a year, I want to look in real shape, I'm thinking let's work through a few phases. So let's do a diet first, then a bulk, then a cut. Depends on what you look like as well. If you're coming to me and you're 20 kilos overweight for what you think you should be, you definitely do a cut first. You need to get rid of that excess body fat you've got first before we worry about starting to try and build muscle. You're also going to put yourself in a much better position to start a bulk because you've got so much more room to add a little bit of body fat when you're in a calorie surplus, and it's just easier to hit that point.
Yeah,
for sure.
Dave and I were talking earlier about post 12-week peak. People are like the most ripped they've ever been.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, oh, how do I maintain this or whatever else as well? They're actually in a great position to go on a gaining phase or a maintenance phase and then a gaining phase for ages because they're already diced.
Yeah.
I think sometimes going through a cut first is normally what I think looks better because it gives people a visible result to track, even if they maybe don't have the same amount of muscle they want underneath the fat, which is a big common issue. At least they maybe are like, oh well, I've got some veins in my arms now and some kind of shape to my abs. Maybe when I bulk, I'll look better next time round.
If you're a newbie as well, like you're going to find that if you've got a little bit of body fat on you and you want to look more muscular, a lot of people go, I'm going to start eating loads and I'm going to try and build as much muscle as possible. You do end up building muscle, but you also put the fat on top as well. Yeah. You'd be much better going, do you know what, actually, let's just park the whole size thing for a while and focus on losing some body fat, the muscular physique you want is probably a leaner version of you right now. That's probably the situation. It's not a bigger version of you. It's probably just a leaner version. And actually, if you are a newbie as well, and I've seen it with clients before, I'm going to give you a program that's going to be such a new stimulus for you that you probably can build a little bit of muscle in the early stages of that cut as well.
Which is quite exciting.
If you're under 18 months training experience, I'd almost exclusively say diet first, because you will be able to build muscle alongside that. So you're going to be able to tick both boxes. And if you've been training for an extended period of time, it depends. But still, I usually gravitate towards get leaner first, because the other benefit of getting leaner and then building muscle is that you actually see some of the muscle being added when you're putting it on. See, if you're building muscle when you're already fat or you already have body fat, it's not that motivating, because you don't actually know. Like, we've got 110 people following a sort of muscle building program right now with us. And a lot of them have said, David, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I'm lifting weights that I've never lifted. But I don't know if I'll look that different. And my answer is, you might not look that different. In fact, ... you might look worse right now. Until you diet and get leaner, and then I promise you'll be like, holy shit,
It'll
I didn't
reveal
realize
the
how
hard
much muscle
work.
was there.
That's a great point. Before we move on from nutrition, what are the biggest mistakes you see being made in that space?
Following sort of cult approaches, I would say, for the most part. So people that only, like carnivore, vegan to an extent. Vegans a little bit different, but following sort of cult approaches to nutrition generally isn't a good plan of action, because on the most part, I always say, like, your diet should represent something that you can do most of the time, which is why I like an 80-20% split. Like, I can do that year round. Like, that's a good life to me. Following carnivore and never being able to eat in certain restaurants, never being able to do certain things, that doesn't really sit well with me. And to be honest, for most people either, they don't want to live that lifestyle. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I think people make with nutrition. The last one is the next one would be going way too low with our calories.
Too fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just dropping calories, thinking like, I'm going to get shredded. This is what I need. Slow and steady wins this.
Yeah, diet fatigue is a real thing. So if you put yourself right into that, say for instance, you're a male and you're like, right, do you know what, I've got, 8 weeks to holiday, I'm going to go 1,200 calories right off the bat. You're going to get 4 weeks into that. Your body's going to stop responding. You're going to feel terrible. Your workouts start getting worse. Everything fails before you get towards the result that you're looking for. You've got time. 8 weeks isn't a lot of time, but you do have some time to make some good changes. Start off in a place where you actually feel pretty good, and stick to it, and you will see things falling down.
Momentum's a hell of a drug as well.
For sure.
Let's do things that I can achieve to start with, and then progressively make it a little bit more difficult.
Get some wins. Yeah, get some wins in the book. Yeah,
you want to make dieting as easy as possible for as long as possible, and by that we mean start with your calories high and very gradually, slowly bring them down.
Third pillar, recovery. What do we need to focus on when it comes to recovery, gents?
I'll kick things off with sleep, because I think it's the most underrated tool for both fat loss, building muscle, performing well in every single area of your life. Not just getting lean and losing body fat. Like, you need to optimize sleep. Sleep is the most important thing. You should be aiming for between 7 and 9 hours. When it comes to sleep, like, I have a very regimented sleep routine. Like, I'm in bed sleeping by 9 and I'm up at 5 most days. It's just that set routine.
David misses Love Island every night.
Never watch Love Island.
Also, you need to go out for dinner with David at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, otherwise he's not coming.
Yeah, we're filming this podcast at 2 in the afternoon. So I honestly just fucking hate staying up late. The only time I'll stay up past 9 is if I'm drinking.
And you're out, yeah.
You are up crazy early though. So like, it's worth pointing out. Like, if you're up crazy early, like, do a bit of a reverse alarm clock and figure out when you should be in bed.
They said that
is when you should be in bed.
They're like, oh, you never sleep, do you? You're always up at 5. And I'm like, I sleep more than you. I just go to bed at fucking 8 o'clock.
Yep.
I'm a pure child.
You've borrowed the hours from the previous day.
Yeah. So sleep's going to be the biggest thing for recovery. So, like, forget training, forget nutrition. If you're really looking to optimize recovery, you need to be getting good quality sleep. And good quality sleep, what does that look like? Obviously, timing. You sort of want to be in bed for kind of 9 hours. You might be getting 7 to 9 hours worth of sleep. How to get better sleep? There's so many things. Cold, dark rooms, one of the biggest ones for me.
Sleep in a cave was the advice I got from a Stanford professor.
The main one. Yeah. Other kind of ones that I've heard before, generally just cutting your water and your calorie intake off about an hour to an hour and a half before you go to sleep. Yeah. So that you have been for a piss, a shit. Your body's not going to wake you up in the middle of the night for that. You're actually just focusing on
and
going
you can
to sleep
all the way through.
Sure.
Hot bath, hot shower.
Caffeine cut off as well, gents.
2 p.m.
Yeah, 2 p.m. I don't do that. But I still sleep okay, so I've just...
You're adapted.
He's an outlier.
Yeah, I'm an outlier, yeah.
That's the main things for sleep, I would say.
Yeah,
That's the big things for me. Yeah, cold, dark room, caffeine cut off, not drinking water probably about 2 hours before bed for me with my small bladder.
Another kind of utilised tool that I mentioned, that I maybe didn't mention there was, or I did mention, getting up at the exact same time every day. Make your weekends look like your weekdays, which is probably where most people fall short. Most people want to have a lie-in at the weekend. I get it. Like, you've obviously been working hard all week, but if you're really keen to sort of optimize your recovery, get up at the same time or within a sort of 45-minute window every day. Like, they
you
should
feel
look
so
similar.
much better for it as well.
Like, I naturally wake up without an alarm most days now because it's just like the time my body wakes up.
I think we've all done that thing where you're like, I'm going to have a lie-in tomorrow. And then you do have the lie-in and you're like, I feel terrible now. Yeah. And you're like, why is that? I've had more sleep. I should feel better.
Quality of sleep's way worse, isn't it?
It is. It's way worse. And I think there's also an element of you kind of get up, you're up later, you're a little bit groggier because you've slept a little bit more, your morning's less productive. And I'm not saying that I don't do this. I definitely do this, but I notice it. 100% notice it. I love to get a bit more of a lie-in on a Saturday morning, but the mornings where I do get up at the kind of same time and I get something in me and I'm like, okay, I've got not for a long time now, but I've got a run club or I've got to go to the gym or whatever, I do feel better for the rest of the day. Yeah, for sure.
Circadian rhythm's a hell of a focus for us.
Yeah, and as long as you're within that half an hour to 45 minutes to your side, you're good. We're not saying you have to get up at exactly the same time every single day, but close to is cool.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And I think when you're looking to get jacked and lean, having these variables controlled for and similar gives you a lot less scope to make mistakes.
Yeah, I think the more groundhog days you can have, the better. If you're looking to get leaner, like the more your days can look similar, as in same calories, same protein, same amount of sleep, similar amount of steps, same training volume, the more that you can do that, the better chance you've got, because it's much easier to make changes when you've got that sort of consistency across your life as well. So that's a big thing to consider. And I think like sleep has got to be not just one of the number one things for recovery, but one of the number one things for optimizing health and performance as well. I think the next thing we've got here is relating to stress. And again, that's something that can impact sleep massively as well. Like most people that aren't getting a good night's sleep, it's typically because of stress. So those sort of things live in a little bit of a, not a continuum, but they affect they affect one another as well. So trying to minimize certain types of stress should be high on your priority as well. This is hard. Like everyone's got life stress, everyone's got business, relationship, career stress, whatever that might look like. These things are hard, but I think having protocols to deal with them, something to maybe touch on as well.
Yeah.
What does stress management look like for you, Alex?
Stress management for me is being organised ahead of time so that I don't get stressed. It actually starts. Yeah, that works too. Actually, that works really well.
Superset that with diary management.
Yeah, we're good to go. Yeah. Google Calendar, screaming into the pillow. Yeah. What was that? What was it you called that? Bundling. There we go.
Superset, bundling.
Don't give yourself the opportunity to get stressed because you've planned for it.
Yeah.
So I think we've all had those work days where you've got a to-do list to do and you never get it done because you just keep getting things thrown at you. That's when we get stressed. It's when we're not expecting something. So if you can allow for that, if you can give yourself extra time to get the things done that you need to get done and almost plan for it, look at your white space in your Google Calendar. We love a Google Calendar. Absolutely love it.
Like that. Shut the fuck up.
I know, we love it.
Stop wanking over a Google Calendar.
but see if you look at how much the three of us juggle, there's a reason that it's possible. This podcast is getting naughty. I can tell it was going to go this way.
Oh, here we go.
But genuinely, see if you look at what you're able to fit in, manage.
Colin?
See the last one we did with Chris where I laughed the full fucking time.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be the most I'd laughed in a podcast, but then I've started this and it's gone out of control.
Just don't start me off because I'll take it too far.
But
we all know that. Oh.
I really feel that when you have discipline equals freedom off the back of it. So I can have a lot of structure within my calendar, and it means that, as you say, you're less stressed when it comes to maybe the curveball that does come up, like the boiler breaks, the car's got a problem, your missus dumps you, things come up. Not that would happen to us.
It's a bad one.
But these things, when they come up, you've got more capacity to handle them because the rest of your day and your week is more easily mapped out.
Yeah, I think just seeing that white space in my calendar de-stresses me because I'm very bad for deciding that a day is worse than it is. If I don't see it written down, like I'll be sitting on a Sunday night, may have been out the night before, that's when it's way worse.
Catastrophizing.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you let a few thoughts go for a long period of time without seeing them, for me, on paper or on a computer, it feels like it's way worse than it is. Once you've actually written it down, you can actually look at it and go, oh, it's actually not as bad as I thought it was. That just completely calms you down. you also will get more done as well because you'll be able to slot things in that you didn't think you had time for, and that's really important as well.
Do you know what helps with stress? A good night's sleep.
It does.
Back to the sleep thing. Let's talk about some of the added extras that have become really popular in the last couple of years when it comes to recovery. Chief among those, I would say, are two polar opposites: hot, which is sauna, and cold, which is ice bath.
Can I just quickly say before we touch on this, a lot of people try and drop fatigue by adding in extras when in actual fact they could do with just doing less.
This is a huge point.
So the whole point of dropping fatigue is relaxing and dropping fatigue. People go, I'm really stressed out, I'm really tired. Do you know what I'm going to do on Saturday?
4 hours of yoga.
4 hours of yoga, cold plunge, I'm going to meditate, blah, blah. They get to the end of the day, they've not had any time to actually just empty their brain and sit and chill out.
Yeah.
You're just adding things in that are meant to help you de-stress, but in actual fact, you're just making yourself busier.
Oh, the number of times people talk about good habits to add, and I'm one of those people that's like, well, have you ever thought about removing stuff? Maybe not binge drinking as often, maybe not scrolling TikTok so much, maybe not watching hours of Netflix, or maybe not doing things that are maybe reductive habits, or maybe not training as often if it means that you're able to spend more time in bed.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of there is data and plenty of studies done with the benefits of both sauna and ice baths, but I think there's just so many other things that you should focus on. Like those should be the things that you do if you've not to say like you can only do them if you're nailing everything else, but the benefits that they have are so minuscule in comparison to eating good quality food, managing your training volume, getting a good night's sleep.
Right now, if anyone's watching on my Instagram regularly, I'm going 3 times a week, sauna and ice bath quite regularly in the morning. I feel great off the back of it. But so much of the other variables in my life are completely locked in. So I'm feeling the added benefit of the cold in the morning because I feel more alert. I feel dialed in. I'm doing something quite difficult in the morning as well, which is it's got some added benefit to it as well. But from a recovery perspective, I don't feel any better in terms of my training compared to if I just make sure I sleep well.
I don't know if you'd feel worse if you didn't do it. You know what I mean?
100%. One of the best ways to judge a habit is if I removed it, how do I feel off the back of it? So I knew that when I removed like my morning walk, for example, I feel worse. I don't feel as alert when I log onto my laptop for my calls. But if you removed the sauna and the ice bath, I don't think I'd be like sitting on a sales call being like, you know what, I'm just not my best today.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't been for a walk and listened to a podcast and felt kind of like
foggy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ice bath makes people feel a bit better. I think that's the main thing to focus off of. People, you add it into your routine because it slightly enhances certain things. Like you being someone else being like $3,000 in their overdraft and going, I'm going to go for a cold plunge. That doesn't sort anything. Like you're adding it on because you're like, oh, that makes me feel that little bit better, and I've got the rest of my life in order. Like, it's not going to solve all your issues.
So true. Last thing on recovery, supplements. What are we thinking?
Unnecessary for most people. Creatine is the number one most studied supplement in the world. Creatine would be the main thing that I'd suggest most people take. Outside of that, omega-3, 6, 9s, vitamin D3, vitamin B12 are sort of my like go-to holy trifecta. They cover most of the bases. Protein powder if you're not getting enough protein through your nutrition. Other than that, like honestly, like put more emphasis into food quality and nutrition than
before we get to Alex's recommendation. I'll just mention that when I'm at my leanest, I do benefit from turmeric because when you have less body fat, you can sometimes get a little bit less lubrication in the joints.
I just eat a lot of curry,
and I feel like I'm a little bit turmeric curry.
Turmeric's like the main ingredient in most curry.
That's what makes it yellow.
Aye, how are you hitting your calorie intake with curry?
Mayflower curry sauce is full of it.
That's true. But for me, I feel like I get quite bad pain in my joints if I'm doing loads of steps and I'm super lean. I do have it as a supplement. I think for my recovery, I do benefit from.
So it's got the anti-inflammatory purposes.
And some people use CBD for that purpose as well.
Yeah, I think the jury's out on CBD to be fair, but I think it's
much less so than previous years. The hype was real, probably about 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
But I'm going to throw a curveball on the supplement situation.
Tonga Ali.
No, actually, we're not there yet. I was going to talk about. I for years said you shouldn't even bother with them until everything else is nailed. If I've got a client coming to me who's really excited to find out what supplements you should take, I'll just give them all. Who am I to say don't try these out? Because I feel like just let's roll with the excitement here. Like let's just
ride the wave.
If you're gonna go and buy them, you're gonna go, I'm gonna take my supplements in the morning and I feel great. Who am I to tell you not to bother? Because it's gonna have some sort of net positive somewhere. Not your bank account, mind you, because they're really expensive. But I just say to people like, yeah, this is what I recommend. This is what I take. Maybe you want to try something like Tonga Ali. which
let's talk about that very briefly.
Okay, let's just talk about it.
Do you know when we first brought it up in the podcast, it was like me, David, and Chris.
Yeah.
And
you said one of the funny. What was the phrase that you said?
I think you just said something like Alex is having great success with it or something like that, and everyone was like, "What does that mean?"
Waking up regularly with boners.
Yeah, and you know what? See, to be serious about it for 2 seconds, really good indicator of good testosterone levels if you're waking up in the morning.
Morning wood, yeah, exactly. Saluting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved. I'm on the Tonka Ali. Have been since January 24.
Okay.
Benefited massively from it, I think, in terms of like sex drive, and I'm lean as well, which is good. Because one of the things about getting jacked and lean, when I'm super lean, sex drive is dropping off. But the Tonka Ali seems to be doing the job.
Keeps it up there.
Yeah. For anyone actually wondering what the hell it is, it's meant to just increase free testosterone in the body, and it is just like any other supplement. It's a plant. You can just buy it online, and it's not any form of PED, steroid, anything like that. It's purely just
herbal.
Yeah, it's herbal. Absolutely herbal. That's
herbal.
Last pillar to talk about, gents, is lifestyle, because when you're getting jacked and lean, we're still living a life outside of it, unless we're, of course, some sort of pro bodybuilder, which neither of the three of us have quite managed to achieve at this stage.
Gave it a bash, but came third in a class of 5.
You did look great, to be fair.
I looked great, yeah. Not great enough, apparently.
Let's talk about lifestyle then. One of the first things I want to talk about is just general movement and steps, because I think that's something that is really important to add into the lifestyle outside of training when it comes to like a formal cardio.
Yeah,
we're moving.
We're big on just using that as your means of getting lean. Like I think a lot of people are big on trying to add cardio and Stairmaster and incline walking and all these things, and it's like,
or a high rocks sim.
Yeah, or that bit. Just track your movements through an Apple Watch or a Garmin or a Fitbit or whatever, a pedometer for $7.99 on Amazon. Having awareness surrounding how much you're moving, having awareness surrounding how much you're eating through tracking your calories, having awareness of your body weight, providing that you have those 3 metrics, that is quite literally all you need. Like if you don't take anything else from this podcast, if you want to get leaner, track your calories, track your steps, track your weight, use the 3 of them to make decisions. That is it.
Manipulate accordingly.
Yeah. So they should be something that's like, they should be high on your agenda with regards to how many. It's different for everyone. Generally, you want to be increasing these as you progress with dieting. Like you will start to sort of see a plateau with fat loss at some point. If that's the case, up your steps or reduce your calories.
Alex, I'm going to talk to you about weekends and socialising. How does that fit within getting jacked and lean?
Well, I'm a professional at weekends and socialising, as you know. But I have...
Do you know the thing? do you know what he posted in his story over the Christmas period? Your favourite dialed degenerate. And I genuinely laughed for about 10 minutes.
That's off of that guy.
That's not an Alex Caldwell original.
No, it's
you should have claimed that. I'm going
to need to give him props for it. You know the guy that is always on about Zins? You know what I'm talking about? It's him. Can't remember his name again. Richie something, isn't it?
We'll look it up.
He's got, honestly, he's got a platform with like 100,000 young dialed degenerates, and it's actually class.
I know. It's that.
But don't go there. Come to MTN instead.
100%. Yeah, he's on a school, isn't he? So he's like monetized it. He's paper man. So yeah, I did sneak that off him. However, I have came round to the conclusion, and especially in the last year, and you guys will have noticed this, that I can't go out the way I used to and still get the results that I used to get. And I think age plays a little bit of part of that, and also just being busier with work and having a little bit more responsibility. So that's what I would say to anyone who's trying to, and there's these TikTok accounts and Instagram accounts that I see and that kind of do my nut in a little bit, and it's like, you can do both. And they see some guy like rattling the gym during the week and then rattling the clubs at the weekend.
The club.
As if you can get some sort of amazing results. Every single one of those guys, I'm like, they all definitely went through a period of time where they didn't do both. They all went through a period of time where they just did the one and they got amazing results. Now they have a physique to show for it, and they've gone back to doing what they were doing before. It's like people who are pushing some form of like exercise program, and this is what got me this physique. That's not what got you that physique. Jumping around in your living room didn't get you that physique to sell this, whatever it was.
Courtney Black.
Joe Wicks.
I mean, Joe Wicks' physique is not impressive in the slightest.
I know, but he had a
methodology.
Some head of hair on him though.
Yeah, great head of hair. Absolutely.
That's true.
But yeah, you need to go through phases of focusing purely on your nutrition, your movement, your training to get a great result. The best I ever looked was 12 to 16 weeks, no booze, prepping for a bodybuilding show, just going all in on things. You can still get good results by going out at the weekend. And again, depends on what your weekend looks like. Some people going out for a few drinks is different from someone else saying I'm going out for a few drinks. But you'll get great results by just doing this and focusing on this for a good period of time. And that's that's what our kind of 12-week peak's all about. It's like we can, you can eat less and you can eat that as long as it's in your calories. You can go out and track a few drinks, but you're just point blank not going to get as good a result.
Yeah,
and it's as simple as that.
You're making it harder for yourself,
for sure.
Absolutely. Totally agree. One of the last things I want to talk about when it comes to lifestyle is the environment and who you're around and who you spend your time with. What role does that play?
I think it plays a massive role. I've done a post about this recently and it didn't quite go viral, but got like 4 likes. And I just referenced the fact that
remember back in the day when you got over 10 likes, it would like change away from who was looking at it. Yeah.
No, the post was relating to how much easier it is for me living with Kirsty, who is also, online coach, also in the fitness industry, also interested in living a healthier lifestyle. It's so fucking easy for us to diet. It's so easy for us to train. It's so easy. Like, we'll go a walk most nights because we're in that environment of us both being interested in that thing. And I think I'd really struggle, / I just probably wouldn't be in a relationship with someone that didn't have an aspect of their life that was involved in health and fitness. But again, yeah, like I think PTs do have it easier. PTs are surrounded by PTs. That makes it easier for sure. I've made it easier for myself even more by being romantically involved with a coach.
She wasn't
Alex
a coach
Caldwell.
when you met though.
No, she's been a coach for 10 years.
Oh, sorry, but she was working full time away from that.
Worth pointing out, she wasn't a client first either.
She wasn't a client. No.
That is a very important.
Don't shag your clients is my next advice.
Don't shit me.
Yeah, exactly. So environment wise, it matters a lot, and I think that's why run clubs, like you mentioned, and the popularity of things like High Rocks, functional fitness, whatever else, like they are super popular because it makes it easier to stick to things. So when you're hanging out with people that have similar goals, it's way fucking easier.
I found that from like a career and business and money perspective, being around people that are doing really well, you feel like you want to do well as well, and you feel not that you want to keep up, but it's normalized.
Yeah.
So like for example, if one of your mates is doing one of your programs, the 12-week peak, for example, and they're tracking their food, it's normalized for you to track your food. Yeah. Or like, oh, can we go to Nando's rather than Five Guys because actually I'm doing a diet? Yeah, cool, of course, mate. Actually, I'm trying to tidy up a wee bit for summer as well. Amazing. You're with people that get it.
Yeah, I think a big issue is like FOMO, and my response to that is we'll get FOMO for something else. Like join a run club. Like think, oh, I can't believe I never made it this morning. That was stupid. Everyone's out there and they're all having a good time. And they're all off to go and get a almond croissant after it in a flat white.
An Amici.
An Amici, yep.
I can't say that with a straight face.
Get FOMO for that. Like feel like you're missing out on something that everyone else is feeling good from. Not getting FOMO from something that everyone else is feeling rubbish from. That's kind of a good way to look at it.
It's just a cheat code. Like if you get any goal, whatever area of your life, whether it's fitness or whatever, like find people with the same goal and it will become much, much, much easier.
Yeah, you've invested from a business perspective recently. And,
for sure.
And that's something you want to be around people that are doing the sort of numbers that you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Last but not least, when it comes to mindset, what do we need to consider for getting jacked and lean?
I don't know if it's necessarily just mindset, but like timeframes. I think patience is one of the hardest things that people find when it comes to getting leaner. Like they think it's going to be a 6 or they think it's even going to be a 12-week process when maybe it's a 12-month process. Maybe it's a case of running through multiple phases. So I think patience, but also awareness surrounding like how long it may take for you is key. And that's why, if anything, investing in a coach just to get an idea of like how long will this take, or not even investing, like messaging either myself or Alex and just being like, here's kind of what I'm like right now. Here's what I'm training. How long do you think it's going to take me? Having that sort of idea of things ahead of starting can be super useful because
manage your expectations.
Fall into a trap of thinking it's going to take 8 weeks when it's going to take 8 months.
It's bonkers the number of people that think like I'll be lean at 80 kilos.
Yeah.
Or I'll be shredded at this weight, and you realise there's another 4 or 5 kilos to go. Or they get down to that weight and they realise they've maybe not got the muscle mass that they thought they had in terms of the shape and proportions. They're not filling out the t-shirts like they used to. That's just the reality most of the time for most people listening to this of being a natural. Yeah. You're probably going to look a little bit different than you expected in that first phase in particular, and even that second phase.
Yeah, so managing your expectations for sure.
And breaking down that journey as well, and just looking at it on a week-to-week basis or even a day-to-day basis. Like we do this with goals. Something that you taught me actually was take a big goal and then split it into months, and then split it into weeks, split it into days, split it into what I need to do each day to get towards that. We're always hammering that home with clients. Like, I know you're 20 kilos away from where you need to get to right now. That seems like a massive task. That can almost seem actually too overwhelming to even start in the first place. Actually, all I need you to do is lose between 0.5 and a pound a week. Yeah, and then you're on the right
lose
track.
1 kilo 20 times, not 20 kilo. It's a good way to look at it. If anyone's got a big fat loss goal, like think of the 1 kilo that you need to lose and celebrate 20 wins of losing that. Then like, shit, I'm 20 kilo before I get to celebrate this win. Yeah, that's something to consider as well.
Yeah.
One of the only other things I was thinking about from a mindset perspective is how beneficial it can be when you do achieve something in this one area with your body. You quite often see it impacts other areas. Dave and I were speaking previously, some of the screenshots you guys have from testimonials from the 12-week peak, a lot of it's about the physical transformation, but loads of it's about got promoted in work.
Yeah.
Was confident enough to start a new relationship or leave a relationship that I wasn't happy in because now I feel more like myself, or I was able to maybe do that public speaking or that presentation that I've never done before. Many positive after effects come from having control and discipline to dictate how your body looks with your training, your nutrition, your recovery, your lifestyle. And the kind of pebble at the top of the avalanche can be, I've got in shape.
I think a lot of people think getting lean is just a case of vanity, but I think it's also a case of sanity.
Oh, I love
David.
That was good.
That was good.
He's warmed up. He's warmed up. The pod's almost done.
But on a serious note, like a lot of people do think it's just a vain thing, and people that aren't maybe in the fitness industry or like care about this kind of thing, they probably see people in shape and they're like, fucking vain prick. Like, but actually, honestly, like the mental benefits from just taking care of yourself, and that for one thing, but also setting a goal like this and achieving it and actually being like, actually, will I set something with clear time frames, clear goals, and I ticked it off? It sort of opens you up to like, well, what else can I achieve in other areas of my life as well?
It's a vote of confidence. I was speaking to a gentleman today before I came to the pod, and he was like, what was the moment that you started to become this kind of really organized, like hyper disciplined person that you are? And I was like, it was when I got in shape at the end of uni, because I realized that if I could control this aspect of my life in terms of what I put in my mouth and how I trained and how I look. We're going again, aren't we? We're almost wrapped up. We'll laugh at dinner. But when I realised how much control and agency I could have over my life in that area, I just started applying it to my studies. I got a much better degree in my second half of fourth year than I did in the first half, because I realised how much agency I had. When I went into a sales job, I was like, okay, well, I can see the effort and the control that I've got. And it all came from kind of learning about how I could manipulate my lifestyle to look a particular way. And for me, that's empowerment, that's agency.
Yeah, I think just sticking to anything for a long period of time just bleeds into every other aspect of your life. The amount of clients we've had, like you said, like I've got promoted in work because I'm doing a bit of a walk before work, I'm going to the gym, I'm getting into work, I feel more productive in the mornings, I'm getting more done, I'm then doing it the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. That just compounds into a great employee, and your boss is going to notice that. They might ask you what you've been doing, and then you build a better relationship. It just bleeds into every aspect of your life. Find me someone who's dropped a bit of body fat and feels worse mentally afterwards. Very rarely that happens.
It's only the extremes. It's the bodybuilding.
It's the extremes. If you've done it properly and you've done it in a healthy and safe manner, you will 100% feel better in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, love it, gents. I think we've given people 4 pillars to really focus on when it comes to getting in the shape of their life for this year. If they want to continue the conversation with you too, where should they head towards?
At Alex Caldwell PT on Instagram. More than happy for anyone to drop me a little message and see what I think their roadmap would be to get towards their best physique.
Beautiful stuff. Alex, David?
At, what is it? At @thehat_MTN. That's Instagram. That's the easiest place to contact me. There's lots of free things that you can download. Join my email list. I'll pester you for life.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you to you both, and thank you to the listener. I'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.